From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay.
This is kind of the culmination of many months worth of work.
An award-winning pumpkin you have to see to believe. We check in on Nebraska during our I-80 harvest tour.
Until we get the crop in the bin, we don't have a crop yet.
And year-round E15 takes a big step closer to reality.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Clinton is on assignment. The Trump administration moving to allow year-round sales of gas with higher blends of ethanol. It's seen as a boom for Iowa and other farm states, which have pushed for greater sales of the corn-based fuel. President Trump announcing he is lifting a federal ban on summer sales of high ethanol blends. That will set off a review that could put E15 in place by next summer. Right now, E15 is banned during the summer months because of concerns it contributes to smog. But ethanol officials say the claim is unfounded.
I want low prices, so I'm okay with it. You know, it's an amazing substance. You look at the Indy cars, they run 100% on ethanol. And you look at other certain forms of very modern energy, it's ethanol based, and that meant a lot to me. But what really means is we're helping our farmers. And we're also going to be helping our refiners, and you know that too, because they're both very important groups. But the farmers have been so terrific, and they produce great product. So I think it's going to be great.
Despite the E15 push, putting it in place could take some time, as our Washington analyst Jim Wiesmeyer told me.
Now, of note will be some of the potential options that EPA will announce in the call for public comments on possible changes in the RINs, which are the credits used in the Renewable Fuel Standard program. So that will be of note. None of this is a done deal yet because it's going to take some time. EPA wants the year-round E15 to take effect for the 29 summer season. So that gives us plenty of time to put it out in the Federal Register, even under an expedited rulemaking. And we know full well that the oil industry will probably litigate some of these options in court.
Another big story we're watching right now, people preparing along the Alabama-Florida state line for the arrival of Hurricane Michael. The storm expected to make landfall later today. Forecasters say it could make landfall in the Florida Panhandle as a Category 3. The National Weather Service saying the storm could develop into a potentially catastrophic event. And that has several producers trying to work right now ahead of the storm. Timmy in Alabama shared these pictures with us. He says he's racing to harvest lots of peanuts and cotton. He says while the crops look good, he's only about 10% harvested right now and doesn't believe he'll have it done before Michael arrives. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen will have more on Michael coming up. USDA releasing its latest crop progress report later than usual due to the holiday. The department reporting 34% of the U.S. corn crop has been harvested in the top 18 producing states. That's ahead of schedule from the 5-year average by 8%. 68% of the corn crop is rated good to excellent, a tick lower than a week prior. Moving to soybeans, USDA says 32% of the U.S. soybean crop has been harvested, 4 points behind the 5-year average. The U.S. soybean condition is unchanged from last week at 68%, rating good to excellent.
The I-80 Harvest Tour is brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
Harvest progress is slow in some areas of the western Corn Belt due to rain. I traveled to eastern Nebraska for this week's I-80 Harvest Tour.
You get it?
I'm going to pull that guard off.
Yeah.
Combine sits still in eastern Nebraska, not by choice.
So the rain gives us a chance to fix everything.
Chris Cavan and his brother try to stay busy during the rain delay in Cedar Bluffs.
It's probably the only time it gets fixed is on a rain day or a dewy morning.
It's the same situation 20 miles down the road in Arlington.
Are you helping?
For Luke Laritzen and the next generation.
Good time to be down, isn't it?
An early start may end with a late harvest.
I'd say we started a week to 10 days ahead of where we have the last 3 to 4 years.
Rain delays have become the norm, with possibly 3 to 6 inches of rain forecasted.
You can't control Mother Nature.
But the news isn't all bad. Scouts along the Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour said back in August, Nebraska may be the garden spot of the Western Corn Belt. Well, the farmers we are talking with in this part of the state say the yields are really good and the yield monitor doesn't lie.
Everything we've been in thus far throughout harvest, I would say we're happy with, too impressed. Corn is, I would say, it'll be slightly above APH. Beans, I can't lie, they're quite a bit better than they were the last few years.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture thinks so too. The department bumping up its average yield forecast in its September crop production report to 198 bushels per acre for corn and 61 bushels per acre for soybeans. Both increases from the month prior and higher projections in the state than the national forecast.
From what we've picked so far, we're above APH. I'd say probably 10 to 30% spots.
Lauritsen has only had one day to harvest soybeans, but sees the potential in both, especially corn.
Got to lube some chains up. We just got done greasing the machine, getting it ready for when we can go again.
Now they just need the weather to cooperate.
Until we get the crop in the bin, we don't have a crop yet.
U.S. beef exports set new records in August. That's according to the U.S. Meat Export Federation. It says the export value topped $750 million, a first. Pork, meanwhile, dropped 1% when compared to last year. The organization says tariffs in China and Mexico continue to pressure the export value. The USDA and the pork industry taking steps to keep African swine fever out of the country, and they're also making plans on how to handle it quickly if it does get in. The virus usually kills the animal. There's no known vaccine. Almost anything can spread it. China has been battling outbreaks of it for months, and it's showing up in Europe. USDA Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue says USDA has put restrictions on imports of swine and pork from China and is working with industries here to increase biosecurity. Ag experts at Kansas State University are focusing research on African swine fever.
Having a major virus like African swine fever virus enter the country would be devastating economically to our agricultural sector. It also, I think, would be very damaging from an emotional perspective as we think about 100% mortality to those affected domesticated herds with no vaccine and no potential treatment.
The university has put a number of resources together to help people understand what they can be doing to prevent African swine fever virus transmission. We've linked you to it. Just check out the AgDay website. The head of the UN's climate agency calling on the world to help keep a lid on global warming. He says there is an extreme urgency to keep the Earth from heating up too much. The head of the World Meteorological Organization said, quote, "We haven't lost the battle yet," but he says action is needed. He said people need to change the way they use transportation. He also called on people to move away from beef. He says raising cattle is a key producer of heat-trapping gases.
The fact that we eat so much meat means that we are using fairly large fraction of our agricultural land for the cattle instead of producing vegetarian food that would be more carbon friendly. So
a recent study by UC Davis reported livestock production in the U.S. accounts for only about 4% of all greenhouse gas emissions. That's compared to 27% from transportation. From not enough rain to too much, meteorologist Cindy Clausen shows us what's happening in Missouri in today's Crop Comments.
Thanks, Betsy. Yeah, it's feast or famine when it comes to rain in portions of northern Missouri. Chuck Weldon posted this picture on Twitter of one of his fields in eastern Daviess County. He says since late last week, the area has seen just shy of 12 inches of rain. And to think late last month, that county was under an extreme drought. Let's take a look at wind conditions as we head into the next 24 hours or so. As you can see, as we head through the day, it's going to be a storm system in the upper parts of the country, the north central, upper Midwest, and into the plains. We're also obviously going to be seeing some effects from Michael in the southeastern United States. Four Corners region, you're going to be seeing a low pressure system there, and so that's going to bring some windy conditions as well. Heading into the overnight, it's going to be pretty much the eastern half of the country between Michael and the storm system in the upper Midwest and Great Lakes, and through the day Thursday, that will continue as well. That's a look at some of your national forecasts. I'll have a lot more coming up, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
While we harvest here at home and other portions of the world, planting is underway. What that could mean for American farmers when it comes to competition down the road, coming up. And we have a really big pumpkin to show you. How big? Find out how much this one weighs and if it broke any records in the country. Well, there's a tension here at home during harvest. Some analysts are focusing on planting in South America. Clinton Griffiths joins us back at the Agribusiness Desk.
Here at the Agribusiness Desk today, we find Brian Bassing, Advanced Trading, our guest. Brian, let's talk about, well, not our harvest, but planting season, and not our planting season, but South America. It's that time of year where they're running planters across the field. Tell us your thoughts on where we stand with South American production this year.
One of the things I think it's important to remind your viewers, Clinton, is that in 2018 we had a severe drought in Argentina. That's right. And there was a drought that affected the double crop corn in Brazil. So that's really opened up an export opportunity for us, particularly for corn here in 2018. However, there are indications that we're seeing some expansion in acreage in South America this fall, that those crops, of course, will be harvested in 2019. So we did some math the other day. If Brazil and Argentina are to get normal weather, their corn production next year could increase 20%. That's bearish for U.S. exports in 2019.
20%, that's unbelievable. And we're just talking about them returning to normal weather, right? And you compare that on top of our expected yields, and those are two huge crops.
Yeah, I think it's hard to think this far ahead, Clinton, but think ahead to next summer, summer of 19, and the fall of 19. We could see exports dropping anywhere from 10 to 20 million bushels per week below what they were this year. That's how much competition could arrive from Brazil and Argentina next summer and next fall.
So what do we do? What's the plan of action here as we sit back and watch Argentina and Brazil and South America put a crop in while we're taking ours off?
2 points, Clinton. Number one, for your 18 crop, look at that carry in the corn market out to next July. If you have on-farm storage, there's a 25-cent carry out to next July. Look at ways of managing that carry, locking that carry in. And also remember, 2019, December 19, is trading right at $4. There's ways to start looking out there, getting the floor into those, underneath those bushels.
All right, be proactive. It's time. All right, appreciate that. Thank you, Brian. We'll be back with more AgDay in just a minute.
To talk with Brian one-on-one, call Advanced Trading at 800-664-2314 or head online to advanced-trading.com. AgDay, brought to you by Prosaro Fungicide from Bayer.
Welcome back to AgDay with meteorologist Cindy Clausen. Cindy, with this hurricane in the southeast, you have to think about the peanut growers, the cotton growers, all the other row crop farmers down there. What are we expecting for this thing?
Well, obviously, it's going to be a big rainmaker for a lot of the southeast and as it moves up the mid-Atlantic coast. So that's something to keep watching. And if you're in the southeastern United States, obviously stay tuned to your local affiliate for the most up-to-date information. The other place to watch is right in the nation's midsection. Let's take a look. We have a pretty potent storm system in the upper Midwest that's going to be heading through the Great Lakes. Much colder air behind it. We've been seeing some very warm weather in the eastern part of the country, but notice the snow that we are seeing in the Dakotas this morning and into parts of Minnesota. That's going to be, again, moving off to the east, so much colder air behind that. So if you've been enjoying the 80s, you're not going to like what's coming your way. Here's a look as we move into the next 12 hours. You can see Michael starting to make it onshore as we head through the day today. We're going to see that low pressure system moving through the Great Lakes. Quieter conditions in kind of the central plains. We do have a low pressure system over towards the Four Corners region, so look for some scattered showers and maybe some upper level snows there as well. By tomorrow morning, we're going to see Michael into the southeast. It's eventually going to be joining forces with this front and eventually moving on out to sea. But we're going to see some much colder air for most of the country on the backside of this front. Let's talk rainfall rainfall. Boy, have we seen a lot of it in parts of the Plains states. And as we add in the next 24 hours, you're not only going to see the movement of that front, but you'll start to see the effects of Michael moving into the southeastern United States. So you can see the eastern, almost 2/3 of the country is going to be very, very wet. Taking a look at snow, yeah, 'tis the season. We're going to see that, especially on the backside of that system. You can see that our model is showing a good 4 to 8 inches of snow in parts of North Dakota and in northern Minnesota as well. Not quite ready for that myself. Let's take a look at those temperatures. Not quite as warm today. That front starting to have an impact, but look at that. Highs only in the 30s in the northern plains. Yikes, still some 80s in the southeast, but we'll watch as that front continues to move to the east. 28 in Billings tonight, still in the 80s in Florida, 70s in the southeast, but watch as that front continues to bring colder weather as we get into tomorrow. Only 40s, 50s, and 60s then there for much of the Corn Belt. Highs again in the 30s as you get over towards the northern plains. That big ridge in the east, that's going to move. We're going to see that trough moving into the eastern part of the country. Watch what happens as we get into the weekend, though, as we see a huge ridge in the western part of the country, all the way up towards Alaska, while we continue to see a trough across the north central part of the United States. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check out the weather where you live. Midwest Wyoming, mostly cloudy today. Some snow showers will be possible with a high of 36 degrees. Starbuck, Minnesota, windy with rain today, but snow later tonight. 40 degrees for your low. Rain and some morning fog in Mulberry, North Carolina.
How big of an issue are pesticides in the food we eat? What the FDA's latest research shows next. And later, can you guess how much this pumpkin weighs? That answer and what it took to grow it in the country.
Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
From the Packer, the FDA reports excessive pesticide residues on food are not a big problem. The agency released the results of a 2016 study. It says it tested for 711 pesticides and industrial chemicals. There were more than 7,000 samples. The FDA says over 99% of the food samples were found to be in compliance with federal pesticide residue standards. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is updating its popular Food Keeper app. There will be a larger selection of foods and drinks, along with more storage information. Look for 85 new food items, including fresh salsa, canned tuna, cereal bars, and salad dressings. The app provides you with information about food safety and preparing and storing foods. If you haven't downloaded it yet, you can check out the changes and where to find it by going to our website. Go to agday.com and check out the link. In honor for an iconic brand, Miss Chiquita was inducted into the Advertising Week Madison Avenue Walk of Fame. Miss Chiquita was introduced in 1944. Some of you might remember her in her early days. She was an animated banana. She took on a human form in 1987. Her current look was designed 20 years ago. The Packer reports she will be unveiling her new look at the Produce Marketing Association Fresh Summit. That will happen later this month in Orlando. Coming up, what's the secret to growing one of those massive pumpkins? The answer from the man who grew this gigantic gourd, next in the country.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
In the country. Sponsored by Kubota's BV4580 round baler. Learn more at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
An Oregon man is a one-man pumpkin growing dynasty. Steve DeLitas of Pleasant Hill, Oregon became a 4-time winner of the World Championship Pumpkin Weigh-Off. It happened in Half Moon Bay, California. The annual event attracts the biggest pumpkins from up and down the West Coast. Look at the size of that pumpkin. It weighed in at 2,170 pounds. Steve credits his continuing success to warming weather in the Pacific Northwest.
This warming trend that we seem to be under, at least right now, has kind of shifted, from where I am, actually even up into the Seattle area. The summers have been really favorable the last couple of years. Whereas, quite often it will be a little too cold, but it's been a good shift for us if you're a pumpkin grower.
With $7 per pound going to the winner, Steve's pumpkin earned him $15,000. It was the second heaviest pumpkin ever weighed at the 40-year-old event. But it wasn't a record. The record was set just last month. That's when a grower in New Hampshire produced a pumpkin weighing more than 2,500 pounds. And that's still pretty impressive. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.